Hello everyone, welcome back to Nader's Nemesis 2.0. This is video number 12 and I need to get you updated. It's been about 4 months since the last video and there have been a lot of things I've been working on that I got to cover. So let's go ahead and get started. So the first thing I want to show you that I've done is I've finished up the paint job. I've got the exterior all cut and buffed, and it turned out pretty good. I'm happy with it. As I mentioned before, I am not a body man, and I now have a much higher appreciation for that skill set. It's a lot of work, and I wasn't really good at it when I started. I wouldn't say I'm great at it now, but I've gotten a lot better with all the mistakes and the redos and all that go into doing body work. So it's turned out pretty good, and I'm happy with it. Once I got the paint all cut and buffed, I was lucky enough to have my brother Jake come for a week, and he gave me a hand cleaning up all of the exterior items, getting them polished up, buffed out, and getting them installed into the car. And it was a big help to me because some of these jobs, particularly things like bumpers, are two-man jobs, and he really helped me out getting that stuff installed. It took us probably most of that week to get those things installed and put on the car. But it turned out pretty nice, and I like how the color scheme looks. It's kind of straightforward, but has a nice look to it. More, not modern day, but kind of nostalgic looking. And then after getting the exterior put together, I started working on reassembling the front section of the car. I never really know what to call this. In the original car, this was the trunk, but now it is quite full of other things, and so I just call it the front section of the car. But you had seen this before. It's now final assembled with the fuel cell. I've got the wiper motor and all the wiring back in place for that. The fuel cell's plumbed in. I've got an Optima battery, and of course then the radiator and the condenser unit for the AC. I've got all of the hoses made and installed, the radiator hoses, the HVAC hoses for air conditioning, heater hoses for the heater, and then the fuel lines, which I don't have attached to the tank yet, but they're run through the center of the car and just need to be terminated here up front and back at the engine. After I finished putting together the front section, I started working on the dash and the interior of the car. As you'll remember, I put together the cluster setup with modern day gauges, and those are now in the car and in place. They've turned out really nice. I've added a high beam and an engine warning light that I'll wire into the system with my Holly. But I've retained all of the stock switches for this. I've got an aftermarket radio that looks like the existing or the old radio, but it's modern and very small actually. The ductwork runs in the dash, and the ductwork is now going to take the place of what used to be the glove box. So that door will be closed permanently and just be an access door to reach things in the dash. But it turned out pretty nice. I've got the vents in the center, I've got the Astro vents on each side, and then I've also got the defroster vents put into the top of the dash. So it's ready to run, and once I get the car running, we'll see how that works. Then I worked on putting the engine bay back together. So the dry sump system, the fans and the wiring for the fans. I've got my coolant recovery tank and expansion tank wired in. Down here is the Holley Dominator electronic fuel injection module. And that is a device that provides for heater hose bypass, which is important on these LS engines when you use a heater that has a switch to turn the lines off so they don't flow through the heater. This bypasses that heater coolant, so it goes back around the engine and keeps that moving inside the engine. So that's been put in place, and all the wiring, the major wiring, and all the other plumbing is brought back here and ready to be terminated when I get the engine back in. As you saw in some of the other pictures, the wiring is definitely underway. I am using a painless wiring system, which is really nice. All the wires that you need are in the kit, as long as you pick the right kind of kit for your car. They're plenty long, they're labeled, and it's got a great instruction manual on how to do it. And so I'm in the process of putting that in. Unfortunately, or fortunately, the system from Painless assumes that you have an engine in the front of the car, and you have a dash, and then the things that are in the back of the car are taillights and things like that. Well, a mid-engine car, you have to basically take that all apart and route those wires in different places, in different directions from the normal place. So that is what I'm working on right now. I'm getting all the wires routed. I started to do all the terminations. Because this car is 57 years old and I'm using the stock switches in it, I'm using a bunch of relays. I think I have 16 relays that I've got in place on this car, and they're there to protect those 57-year-old switches because of the high amperage modern day appliances that you put in these cars, like LED lights and things like that. And then also to create the functionality that I want with how the turn signals work and using the halos and things like that. So a lot of wiring that goes around. I've got this front area terminated for the most part. The next thing I'll do once I have everything terminated, I'll be working on making this tidy by bundling these wires up and then using some looms to organize it. So a lot more to be done in here, but I've got it to this point where I'm working my way from the front to the back of the car. And then the last item for this update is the Mendiola DR5 is now in my shop. I was fortunate enough to integrate a vacation and a trip to San Diego to go visit the Mendiola transaxle shop and pick up my transaxle. I got a chance to meet Mike Mendiola and Ian Kirkland, really great guys, and my transaxle was being assembled by Ian, so I got to watch him do that, learn a little bit about it from Ian while he was putting it together, and it was really helpful to me because I now know a lot more about how this works on the inside, how the shifting occurs, how oiling works, the different kind of components that are in it, and things to look for in this hydraulic clutch and using it with the engine. So it was a great trip. I would have to say though, you would think that bringing this home would be the highlight of that trip. However, Mother Nature took over on this trip, and I actually flew into Southern California at the same time Hurricane Hillary showed up. So I was driving in a hurricane from Los Angeles airport down to the shop in San Diego. I had a 5.1 Richter scale earthquake that occurred while I was on that trip, and on my way home I had to alter my path because of mudslides, and I had the first time I've ever been into a sandstorm with the high winds from the hurricane. So it was quite the trip from Mother Nature, and it was a long drive, 2,487 miles from San Diego to my home here in South Carolina. But it's here, it's hooked up to the engine, and I will be working at putting it into the car here shortly. And that'll be a part of my next video. So that's the end of this update. Hopefully you'll get a chance to see with those videos some of the progress I've made and how things have been put together. Look forward to your comments and suggestions. Plugging along here, and I'm hoping that I can be making some noise with this thing in the next 1 to 2 months. So we'll see. But take it easy and have a good day, and look forward to the next video.